Is the United States facing a constitutional crisis? In recent years, the question has been asked more frequently. With rising political tensions, questions about the balance of power, and some unprecedented challenges to the Constitution, many wonder if America's foundational document is at risk. Today we're turning to ChatGPT for some answers and analysis. Let's dive into the current state of the U.S. Constitution and whether we're on the brink of a crisis. First, let's define what a constitutional crisis is. In simple terms, it's when there's a breakdown in the legal and political framework established by the Constitution. This could happen when branches of government exceed or abuse their power, or when key constitutional principles like checks and balances are ignored or violated. But does this apply to the U.S. today? That's what we'll explore. There are a few signs that some argue indicate the U.S. may be in a constitutional crisis. Let's break them down. 1. Executive overreach. There have been instances of the executive branch pushing its limits, especially when it comes to executive orders or the use of emergency powers. Some argue this undermines Congress's role and the system of checks and balances. 2. Partisan gridlock. The rise of political polarization has created a divide that hampers the government's ability to function effectively. Can a system that was built for compromise survive an era of intense political division? 3. The judicial system's role. The role of the judiciary has also come into question, particularly with the Supreme Court. Many fear that its decisions, especially those influenced by political appointments, may be stretching or undermining the original intentions of the Constitution. So, according to ChatGPT, is the U.S. in a constitutional crisis? According to the AI, we're not in a full-blown crisis just yet. However, there are growing tensions that reflect the need for a more balanced interpretation of the Constitution in today's society. ChatGPT suggests that while there are challenges, especially with increasing partisan divides and executive power, the system is still functioning. The Constitution has built-in resilience, allowing it to adapt and endure through crises, even if some feel the checks and balances are being tested. To understand if we're in a crisis, it's important to look back at history. The U.S. has experienced constitutional crises before. During the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, and in the Watergate era, President Nixon faced impeachment. Both were moments where the government's actions tested constitutional limits, but the system ultimately held. History shows us that the Constitution is resilient, but also that it can be pushed to the brink. Another important factor in the conversation about a constitutional crisis is public perception. The divide between political parties has never been wider, and many Americans feel their voices are not being heard. If more people believe the system is broken, does that make it feel like a crisis, even if constitutionally things are functioning as intended? ChatGPT suggests that public faith in institutions is critical to preventing a true crisis. Without trust, even a stable system can feel fragile. So, how can we avoid a constitutional crisis? ChatGPT emphasizes the importance of civic engagement and an informed public. By participating in the political process, voters can ensure that the system remains in check. Additionally, it's crucial that all branches of government uphold the Constitution and respect its limits. Reform might be needed in some areas, but the fundamental principles of the Constitution remain an anchor for the country.